we have Krista Allison from the Stark Education Partnership, also the Stark County Education Service Center and State Support Team Region 9. Thank you for being here, Krista. And we have Sarah Schmidt from KSU at Stark. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
You're here because we want to explore this new initiative that you have, this new group, not exploring a new topic, but Dismantling Racism Coalition of Stark County. And I'd like to turn it over to you to talk a little bit more about that goal and the effort happening. And you already mentioned the challenge, so we'll get there, but please, by all means.
So Sarah, I'll start. You want to jump in with this. I just want to talk a little bit about who's on the coalition, because it's comprised of various organizations throughout our county that have come together to challenge our county to not only have conversations about racism, but to dismantle and interrupt those conversations so that we ultimately will be able to end racism. That's our goal. The members of the coalition consist of the United Way of Greater Stark County, the YWCA Canton, Child and Adolescent Behavioral Health, Coming Together, Stark County Educational Service Center, Kent State University at Stark, Stark County Collaborative on Race Relations, Stark County Health Departments, Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, Stark Education Partnership, the State Support Team Region 9, and the Greater Stark County Urban League. And all of these entities came together just a few months ago, actually, with a specific goal. The goal is how do we begin to talk about racism, having real conversations about racism, having the courageous conversations about racism, and to continue to have these conversations so that we can be not only reflective on what's happening with our jobs, but reflective internally as it relates to race. And so it's just an honor working with all of the organizations that are part of it. And one of the first things that we came out with was the 15-day Unity Challenge, which has been an exciting challenge. We had over 2,000 people participate. I say 2,000 and some change participate. I think it was 2,078 or 79. 49 endorsing partners came on board to participate with this, which means those were just organizations, meaning they're going to tap into their employees and staff as well. So that number is going to grow exponentially as well. But this was something that, when we think about our current world, our current state of affairs, this was something that was much needed in order to really dismantle racism and to really begin that healing. These conversations have to take place.
One of the other important aspects to know about our Unity Challenge here in Stark County is that we localized the information and data. And so it is so relevant to what's happening right here in our own communities. So you can see the statistics and the data that really bring home these topics. It brings this kind of abstract idea of systemic racism, and it really puts it into perspective for us on how this is manifesting in our communities.
Each day challenges your consciousness. It challenges your beliefs. It challenges what you thought you grew up with, what you thought you knew, to say, well, maybe there's something different there. And within the challenge, what was so amazing about it is that we built in reflective questions. So at the end of that challenge, you could go through and it was staggered steps. So you could either watch a video, you could read an article. There were a variety of things you can do. And in education, that's that staggered learning process, because we all learn differently. Some people like to watch videos, some people like to read articles, but there were these reflective questions that were so on point each and every day to really cause you to reflect and think about not only yourself, about your family, about others. And then there was another section for children. Having that conversation with your child, your children, that could take on a whole nother look. And so we were very deliberate about putting in each day how to talk to your child, whether it was a book, whether it was a video, whether it was just a quick short story, or whether it was a question just to pose to them when they think about it. But all of those things, while I like to think they were for our children, those are things also I think that as an adult, you could do them as well, because again, it's challenging what you thought things to be. And I think each day was reflective. They could stand on their own, but very powerful. And they built each day. So even though you started with day one, which was just really trying to identify and self-identify, it built up each day to ultimately by day 15, it was action, how to be an ally. And so that's something that was very deliberate and on purpose. And just, as a part of that challenge, one of the things that we would be remiss if we didn't note was that it was actually developed by Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. and Debbie Irving, and we adapted it to fit our county. So again, while we're here today representing the coalition, our work, we stand on Dr. Moore and Debbie Irving on this, and because of their great work with this, we were able to take that work, modify it to fit our county, and now we have what's called our 15-day Unity Challenge here for Stark County.
The design of the challenge is to expose us to all of these different layers of racism that builds on top of each other and then reinforces each other to develop this system that we now have in place. And so, there's not one day that you can just like pull out and then have the information that you need. It's progressive and designed that way intentionally.
We've heard back from people within our community that have said, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I clearly didn't know that. Or have said, I not only did step one, but I did all the steps that day because I wanted to go deeper. And did we tell you that there was also a go deeper section? Because at one point, when Sarah and I were working on one, we had so many steps that we were like, okay, so there's no way they're going to do all these steps in one day. So we might have to put that in a go deeper section. So you'll find that as you go through the challenge that there's this go deeper section, which has additional information. So it is strategically layered for individuals to continue to go deeper, because these conversations on race, as uncomfortable as they are conversations that we must have. Yeah. We must have them. We've said, I've said silence is not an option. We all have entry points that we enter this conversation because of our friends, our professions. But if we work through our entry points, that's how we continue to dismantle racism.
And really leaning into the toolkit that you'll walk away with from the Unity Challenge. There are very concrete tools provided in many of the days, and especially the last couple of days that are action oriented on what to do next. Leaning into those, carrying that toolkit around with you. So then when you are confronted with it, because it's a when, not an if, mm-hmm. when you are confronted with a situation that is racist, that you have the tools in your back pocket on how to approach that situation.
As adults, we have to be intentional with our actions, our beliefs, our attitudes, our biases. We have to be really intentional if we're going to say, well, we want to dismantle racism, or I want to dismantle racism. Well, it starts with, yourself. It starts with you as an individual to say, what are you going to do to challenge your attitudes, your beliefs, your habits, your biases? And then through that, becoming that ally and continuing to dismantle by way of how we shape and talk with others and how we work with others. So that's, I think, as folks start to go through the challenge, they'll be able to see that but we were really, we've been really fortunate to be able to work together and to work with the coalition and to be a part of the coalition on this. And we have some other things planned as well. So even though the challenge is technically over, it's still going, and there's still things that are in the works with the current coalition.
And where do they go to sign up for that challenge?
Oh, well, they go to Dismantling Racism, starkcounty.org. So so we'll give you the link for that, Dismantling Racism, starkcounty.org. And they will see all of the information there about the challenge.
And that 15 days is over, but can you still participate?
Yes. So the Unity Challenge is open for registration. So you can register and start getting those 15-day emails, daily emails for 15 consecutive days the next morning after that registration goes through.
So as a parent, I find it difficult to host serious conversations with my children. And I believe others would benefit from the answer to this question. How does one begin a conversation with their children about race or about racism?
Well, I think that for me as a person of color, um, I was already born into racism. And so exposing and having those conversations with my children, they've been honest conversations to explain to them what the realities of our world are, what exists currently, what they will face. And unfortunately, we had to have those conversations at an early age with them. And while some may say, oh, well, is it too young? No, because this is something that they were going to have to face early on. There's a great book that Sarah and I always make reference to called A Kid's Book About Racism, and it's by Jelani Memory. And it's a great book. It is on YouTube, and it really helps to open up that conversation on race and racism with young children. The other part I would say that would come with that and having the conversation about race and racism, and the fact that I said that it doesn't stop there, exposing your children to diverse books, to diverse people, putting them in those situations where they can see that diversity and they can experience that is important all throughout their childhood. As a person of color, I was already exposed to that. We made sure that our children were exposed to that as well as an early age, so that they were able to see different people, understand different religions, understand what diversity and equity meant, but also understand what injustice looks like and what microaggressions look like and what bias. So those were conversations that we had early on. But that first book that I just provided, A Kid's Book About Racism, it's a great book to have as an opening starter conversation with a child. And even for adults, it's a great eye opener.
I absolutely agree that there's no age that's too young to talk about these things. And of course, I'm coming at this from a different perspective. I'm raising a white daughter, and so she will have a very different experience compared to Krista's daughter, for example. And my approach has always been, if there are children that have a lived experience of facing racism, prejudice, discrimination, when that is children's lived experience, it's never too young to talk to my daughter about it. By omitting the conversation with my young child would be leaning into our white privilege, and that's not something that I'm willing to do. And so the Kid's Book About Racism was a great entry point for me and my daughter. She's 5. And we've been having this conversation for a while now. I'm also consistently challenging her knowledge production. And so as she comes home from school or time with friends, talking about the topics of conversation, the topics in the classroom, her lessons, I'm consistently providing another lens to those things. And so, for example, when we look through books and look at the U.S. presidents, mm-hmm. I'm very conscious to point out to her that our list of presidents has looked a particular way. Mm-hmm. And I'm very open to having that conversation and normalizing that conversation with her, to point out the omissions, to point out the discrepancies, and to offer her a more balanced history.
So it just doesn't stop with the challenge. It's within your area of focus. And it could be a shift. If you say, within my place of employment, I'm going to challenge another coworker to do the challenge with me. I want to open up conversations, and have, during lunch hours, I want to have conversations about areas of the challenge. So there are a host of different things that can happen. As a parent, I'm going to go ahead and diversify my library and read additional books so that my children are able to see and be exposed to different things, as Sarah mentioned. So there are a host of things that can happen. This is just one of those elements through the challenge, but there are a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for all your time. I know you're on Facebook Live and putting so much effort into this, and it's really been impactful for me, and I'm sure for others. But definitely thank you for all of your effort you put into reaching out to our community, because we need it.